The first problem, here you are given a triangle, and in particular, you're given all three sides. Anytime you're given all three sides of a triangle, you're going to look to use the law of cosines. That's one of the two cases when you use the law of cosines, when you're given all three sides. The other case is if you are given two sides and the angle between. So those are the two cases for which you use the law of cosines. But here we're going to look at the law of cosines when you're given all three sides. And in this first problem, we have to find angle A. So the law of cosines, when you're given all three sides, when you're trying to find an angle, looks like this. The cosine of angle A equals the other two sides squared. So B squared plus C squared minus A squared. So we're trying to find the angle A, so side A goes at the end with a subtraction. So the cosine of A equals B squared plus C squared minus A squared over 2BC. The angle that you're trying to find, the opposite side is used once, and the other two sides, B and C, are used twice. So that's what the form looks like when you're given all three sides. And now we're going to substitute in. We have the cosine of angle A equals B squared, so that's the side opposite angle B, so that's 9, so 9 squared, plus C squared, so the side opposite angle C, which is side 6, minus A squared, so the side opposite angle A is 14. So it's 9 squared plus 6 squared minus 14 squared over 2 times B times C, 2 times 9 times 6. The nice thing about the law of cosines is once you set it up, all you end up doing is just plugging the expression into your calculator. Now remember what's going on here. Here we are finding an angle. And the two things you have to remember when you're finding an angle is you always press the second button first, and then you have to DMS your answer. So on our calculator, we're going to be pressing the second button and then cosine. So the second button's in blue, so second and then cosine, and then this big fraction. So take a minute, press second and then cosine, and then enter in exactly what you see. Remember, the fraction on your calculator is alpha and then y equals in option 1. So go second and cosine, enter in this fraction on your calculator. So after you enter in that entire expression, close your parentheses, and then go to second and then apps, and then number 4 for DMS. And here we have 137 degrees, 0 minutes, and 38.65 seconds. We always look at the seconds, and if it's 30 or more, we round up. So here our final answer is going to be 137 degrees and 1 minute. So that's how we use the law of cosines to find an angle. If you're given all three sides, that's how we use the law of cosines to solve. Our next problem is a word problem, so we're going to have to draw our own picture. So here it says in triangle DEF, so the letters don't matter, but how you label it, the numbers do. It says little e equals 16. So we'll find angle E, go directly opposite that side, and label that as 16. It says little d is 12, so we'll find angle D, go directly opposite that side. Label that 12, and little f, so we find angle F, go to the side opposite that, is 17. We have to find angle F. And this is another scenario when you are given all three sides. Remember, sides are always lowercase. So here we're given E, D, and F. And we're finding an angle. Specifically, we're finding angle F. So I'm going to write this as the cosine of F. So this is the law of cosines. You use it when you're given all three sides. So I'm going to write the cosine of angle F, because that's what I'm solving for, equals the other two sides, D squared plus E squared, minus F squared, over 2 times the other two sides. So since we're finding angle F, we're using side F once, and we're using the other two sides, D and E, twice. So now we're going to substitute in. We have the cosine of angle F, that equals D squared, so that's going to be 12 squared, plus E squared, that's going to be 16 squared, minus F squared, so that's 17 squared, over 2 times D times E, 2 times 12 times 16. And we're finding an angle, that's the key. So when you're finding an angle, you have to remember to first press the second button, and then you have to DMS your answer. So here press second and then cosine, enter in this expression, close the parentheses, and then remember to DMS your answer. Take a minute, enter that in, and see if we can find angle F. So here we look at the seconds, it's 53. So that's bigger than 30. So we're going to round up. So here our answer is going to be 73 degrees and 12 minutes. So problem number 3, here you're told triangle ABC, angle B, capital B, is 90 degrees. So here we have to stop right there. Since we have a 90-degree angle, that tells you two things. That tells you, number one, you have to draw a right triangle, put angle B by the right angle, and secondly, that tells you that we're not going to be using the law of cosines here, but rather we're going to be using our SOHCAHTOA rule. So angle B is 90 degrees. A and C don't really matter where you put them, but now the numbers do. It says little a, so the side opposite angle A is 14, and angle C is 22 degrees and 30 minutes. We have to find side B, which is the hypotenuse, the side opposite the right angle. Well, here we're using SOHCAHTOA, so the first step is going to be to label the picture. Here, our angle is 22 degrees and 30 minutes, so I know side B is the hypotenuse. The opposite side would be the height of the triangle, and that means 14 would be the adjacent. So step 1, label the picture. Step 2, identify the active sides, and here the active sides are the adjacent, 14, and B, the hypotenuse that we're solving for. So here the active sides are the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So here we're going to be using cosine. The cosine of an angle equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So I'm going to plug in the cosine of the angle. Well, here the angle is 22 degrees and 30 minutes. That equals the adjacent 14 over the hypotenuse, which is what I'm solving for B. So step 1, label the picture. Step 2, identify the active side. Step 3, try to figure out if it's sine, cosine, or tangent. Step 4 is to plug in, and now step 5 is going to be to solve. And since our variable, since our x, since our b is in the denominator, here we're going to be using that switcheroo rule. We're going to take the b, we're going to take the cosine, and we're going to switch places. So here we're going to have the b goes to the left. B, that equals 14 over, and now the cosine goes into the denominator. The cosine of 22 degrees and 30 minutes. So here, since I'm solving for a side, all you do is you just plug in. We don't have to do second and DMS. We're just going to plug in 14 over the cosine of 22 degrees and 30 minutes. So 14 over the cosine of 22 degrees and 30 minutes, and we're rounding to the nearest 10 since we're finding a side. So here we're going to have 15.2 for side B. Finally, for number 4, in triangle ABC, they're not giving me a 90-degree angle. They're actually giving me all 3 sides, so it doesn't really matter where I put the letters. It matters where I put the numbers. Side A, so the side opposite angle A, that's going to be 10. Side B, so I find angle B, go to the side opposite that. That's going to be 17. And then looks like side C, so I find angle C, go to the side opposite that. That's going to be 11. I have to find angle A. So here, since I'm given all 3 sides, I'm going to be using the law of cosines. And I'm going to be writing the cosine of A. That equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared. Remember, these 2 outsides have to match. Since I'm finding angle A, side A is going to be at the end. So the cosine of A equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared over 2bc. So now I'm going to plug in. I have the cosine of angle A equals b squared, so that's 17 squared, plus c squared, that's 11 squared, minus a squared, so that's minus 10 squared, over 2bc, 2 times 17 times 11. And here, since I'm finding an angle, I have to remember to first press the second button. So I'm going to be doing second and then cosine. And then I'm going to be DMSing the answer. Take a minute, press second cosine, enter the fraction, DMS your answer, and round to the nearest minute. So I'm looking at the seconds, which are 59. That's bigger than 30. So I'm going to round up. So here we're going to have as our answer 34 degrees and 1 minute.